Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly through these calls, bottom line the information for you, although we do have a lot to discuss today, but we know you're busy people and you have other things to do. We spend a few minutes talking first about the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar, which we continue to believe is the base currency for the potential reset of these other currencies. A few minutes talking about the program we've put in place to assist you. And then we go to a brief Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about what's going on in Iraq. But before I do, I want to get a little philosophical with you. There's an ancient Chinese saying, "May you live in interesting times." Things are getting very, very interesting, not only in Iraq, but globally and in the United States. And so what I want to do today is take our 747 up to about 30,000 feet and take a look at what's going on, because I know from our perspective, our primary concern is the reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar and potentially these other currencies. But we have to be realistic and look at those events as part of a much larger picture. So I want you to keep that in mind when we discuss what we're going to discuss here today. There have been a couple occasions in the past. Well, before I even get into that, I like first to offer a disclaimer. Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information that we think is relevant. And, of course, the most relevant piece of information for us would be the potential reinstitution, the window for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. We continue to believe, pursuant to what's occurred over the last week, that 45 to 60 days is a reasonable expectation for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar, and we'll get into that here. As I was about to say, there have been a couple occasions in the past where we were close to the reinstitution of the dinar, back in 2012 and again in 2014. However, the situation then was rather the reverse of what it is today. At that time, we did have a government in place, albeit they were pro-Iranian and to a large degree corrupt, but there were no currency reforms in the CBI. The Central Bank of Iraq had not completed any of the currency reforms as a prerequisite for the reinstitution of the dinar. Today, however, we are very close in my opinion, but the situation is reversed. It's the CBI that has concluded their work. They've concluded the project to delete the zeros. The lower denoms and coinage are in the possession of the 8 regional banks. The Parliamentary Financial Committee and the U.S. Treasury are supervising the CBI activities. So the currency reforms are in place. What's not in place is the government. And for those that have been following closely, the Parliament has been playing musical chairs with the Prime Minister designate position and the subsequent appointment of cabinet for several months now. Last Monday, it was everyone's belief that al-Zarfi would probably be confirmed as the prime minister and that he might even be able to get his cabinet through. By Wednesday, al-Zarfi had resigned, and Mustafa al-Kazemi was swiftly replaced as the nominee for the prime minister designate. Now, who is Mustafa al-Kazemi? He's an attorney. He's a well-educated man. He was an anti-Hussein journalist who was forced to flee the country for some years. Upon his return, he was appointed by then Prime Minister Abadi as the chief intelligence officer in the country. He did spend some years involved in conflict resolution with the government, and that's important because the man is respected by all sectors as a straight player. Now, why is al-Kazemi the best hope for finally establishing the new government above and beyond all of the other individuals that have come and gone? Well, the most important reason is the Shia blocs now support him. They've stated as much publicly, and if they're true to their word, they're not going to make specific demands about his cabinet. So for the first time in a long time, the Shia blocs are not being intimidated by the Iranians. Now, why is that the case? Because it's important that the Iranian influence be neutralized. Well, there's a number of reasons why Iran is no longer the threat to the stability of Iraq that it was even a month ago. First, the sanctions initiated by the Trump administration have really seriously damaged the Iranian economy. The recent drop in oil prices has further constrained the Iranian economy, since upwards of 75 to 80% of their revenue is generated from the sale of petroleum. The Iranians have lost their ability to skim funds from the Iraqi auctions, and it's estimated that last year they skimmed as much as $40 billion. Though it's not reported too much in the media, the coronavirus is devastating the citizenry of Iraq, inclusive of the mullahs and many of the high government officials. And most importantly, the death of Soleimani, who was Iran's number one figurehead in orchestrating and managing their jihadist and desire for hegemony in the Middle East, has created a severe problem for them, along with the death of his right-hand man, Iraqi al-Muhandis, who was orchestrating attacks on U.S. installations in Iraq. And Iran is simply not in a position to find anyone to fill those vacancies. As a result of their devastated economy, their jihadist efforts in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Yemen, and the Gaza Strip cannot no longer be underwritten. As a matter of fact, Iran is completely now incapable of funding the activities of Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen. So at the end of the day, what's happened here is Iran has been defanged. Now, they did try a couple of weeks ago to suggest that they would continue to attack U.S. facilities within Iraq. I do have some sources that tell me that, and as many people know, there have always been back-channel communications on lower levels between the United States and Iran. And what I've been told is that the Iranians, and Donald Trump alluded to this, the Iranians have been told in no uncertain terms that there will no longer be a quid pro quo or an appropriate quote-unquote response to any more of their attacks on U.S. facilities or U.S. personnel. If they continue in those activities, this time it will be their oil fields. Now, as I said, 75 to 80% of their revenue is generated from the oil fields. They have 5 major oil fields, each generating about $60 billion a year. They have a $400 billion annual revenue. So if they lose even one of their oil fields, that's about 15% of their entire economy. If they lose all of them, they're basically reduced to some guy on the corner selling pencils. So I think that we finally have the Iranians pushed to the side, and that is the last piece of the puzzle in terms of dealing with Iran. Now, the other issue, what's going on in the United States. We have the coronavirus as well, and it affects different countries in different ways. Now, what's happened in the United States is that the Trump administration stimulus project, unlike the previous stimulus with the Obama administration, is not top-down, it's bottom-up, getting dollars and checks right to the people. Trump has, for all intents and purposes, nationalized the central bank and the Federal Reserve, which has a direct effect on the central banks globally. What does that do? That pushes us away from fiat currency, meaning that pushes us toward Basel III compliant commodity-backed currencies. Now, I'm not saying any of that was done so that the Iraqis can reinstitute their currency and we can all go to the bank and do our exchange and move on down the road. I'm simply saying that it's the butterfly effect. What's happening globally and specifically in the United States can only assist in moving in the direction from away from the fiat currency and again toward the Basel III compliant commodity-backed currencies. So from our flight pattern at 30,000 feet, it looks like everything is moving in the right direction, and 45 to 60 days for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. And I know the situation is and has been fluid for a decade, but everything is moving today as we speak in the right direction. Now, that being the case, individuals are running out of time to get their affairs in order prior to the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Most individuals that hold these currencies are hardworking, middle-class individuals who, for the first time, will be faced with dealing with a substantial amount of money. And they're going to be looking at tax issues, liquidity issues, investment issues, all of those things. To that end, Trusts Unlimited has put a turnkey program in place to assist you. It's a program that we have established for ourselves and some time ago decided that we ought to make it available to everyone. It's a two-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a package of pre-RV asset protection trusts with the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust package. Post-RV, or Phase 2, involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you and which you will desperately need after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. So let's start by talking about Phase 1, which is, again, the establishment of a package of pre-RV asset protection trusts with the assignment of those currencies on paper to this trust product. We have established a package of irrevocable trusts for a specific reason, and that package must be established prior to the revaluation of these currencies, and I'm going to explain to you exactly why that's the case. Now, there are, in fact, a number of entities one can establish to provide some level of asset protection. For example, individuals could establish LLCs or sub-S corporations, and they do provide some level of asset protection, primarily by dividing high-risk business endeavors from personal assets. The problem here is twofold. First, these currencies are personal assets. They are not a business asset per se. And second, courts have ruled that LLCs or sub-S corporations owned in the majority by either one person or a closely held group can be pierced for civil litigation. So the LLC and sub-S corporation are not going to be appropriate for your needs. Some individuals have established revocable or living trusts, and those entities will exempt your estate from the cost and delay of probate and can reduce and in some cases even eliminate the federal estate tax. But revocable or living trusts can provide no privacy or asset protection, so they're going to be inappropriate for your needs. Some individuals have established single or individual irrevocable trusts, and of the entities I've just mentioned, that does provide the most asset protection. However, there is an inherent flaw in a single irrevocable trust, and it is this. Because all of your assets and net worth are owned by that one entity, if any asset within that trust is involved in civil litigation, that would necessarily drag all of your other assets and net worth into that litigation, again, because they're all owned by that same entity, that same individual irrevocable trust. The solution is to establish the best bulletproof asset protection available in the United States, a package of irrevocable trusts. In addition, this package must be established prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies for a number of reasons, and I'm going to review them with you here. First, by establishing such a package, you will preserve your privacy and anonymity both pre- and post-RV, because assets held within our trust package are sealed, meaning that the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing this trust package, you will avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you are holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will probably spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would be time-consuming. It would certainly be frustrating because it's come along just at the time these currencies have revalued, and there's a lot of other much more important things you'd rather be doing. And third, the cost of a 6-year audit would most likely be more than the cost of our asset protection trust package. On the other hand, if your pre-RV trust package is in force and you have assigned your pre-valued currencies to that trust package, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of this revaluation from yourself personally to our trust package. Now, this is important for 2 reasons. There's less than a 10% chance of an audit if the taxable event of this revaluation were to occur within a rather sophisticated trust package like ours. But second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they can't do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is if you plan on gifting currencies to family and friends. Philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to give currencies to family and friends prior to the revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves, or giving them the U.S. dollar lump sum after you have negotiated the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the post-RV lump sum, or if you would simply prefer to assist them with the management of the post-RV lump sum, you can gift to them through a specially designed gift subtrust that is part of our package. Because you're gifting through this subtrust, their U.S. dollars will be protected along with yours. The language of this subtrust allows you to gift up to a certain amount of a currency or currencies, meaning you can give these individuals as close as possible to the exact U.S. dollar amount that you had in mind, irrespective of the exchange rate. And third, because this money is housed within this special gift subtrust, you will be able to manage, invest, and distribute this money to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you 2 quick scenarios. Scenario number 1, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now that estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But remember, probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with a probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years, and in some cases even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government would assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 55%. Now, this scenario is not only unacceptable, it's completely and totally avoidable. Scenario number 2, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The next day, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that very same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate. There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this package of pre-RV asset protection trusts is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. What does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have very deep pockets and a very strong case, because this trust has been structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once any prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000. The value of the currencies at the time you transferred them out of title into our trust, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will not be a lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop-loss. This will protect you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a legal strategy called segregation of assets. This is why we have established a package of trusts, and this is how it would work. Once again, we'll use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. And now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by your master trust, the trust that was established pre-RV. Now, why is this important from an asset protection standpoint? Well, let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident, the accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving, the only other entity involved in the accident. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts, of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important. All of your other assets and net worth are safely protected in the other subtrusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate subtrusts are separate legal entities or persons, and the plaintiffs would have no standing to pursue a separate legal entity. So your trust package works very much the way a barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your trust package prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, the holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in Phase 2. All of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar. Now, I'll just make mention of one here today. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your trust packages post-RV. Many of our clients have already expressed a desire to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3, nonprofit, and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is with the direct transfer of funds from your asset protection trust to those newly formed entities. We will have our tax specialists there, and with this newfound wealth, you're going to want and need assistance with some of the more sophisticated tax strategies that wealthy individuals utilize. We will also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well, because you're going to want to reposition assets after the revaluation for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the general taxing authority of the respective governments, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds at those banks. And examples of this have already occurred in the EU, most specifically on the island of Cyprus as part of Greece for not meeting their loan obligations to Germany for the rehabilitation of their economy. So there are a number of reasons why you need to get money out of the banks and in other markets. Lastly, we know the general global shift, and it's occurring as we speak, from fiat-based to Basel III compliant commodity-backed currencies in and of itself is going to create extremely volatile financial markets, and you're going to want a substantial amount of your net worth in tangible assets. And all of these things will be addressed at our post-RV seminar for those of you that have our trust. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV, your financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, and manage the sub-trusts. One optional gift sub-trust if you plan on gifting currencies to friends, family, and you wish to manage the money post-RV, which sub-trust can be converted at any time to a standard sub-trust, and you have 8 additional standard sub-trusts to hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized for our more affluent clients in the past, a trust package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But when we decided to work with Dinarians nearly a decade ago, we knew that that price tag was going to simply be unaffordable for too many. So by basically postponing all of the heavy lifting and funding post-RV, we've been able to reduce the cost of this trust to $3,000. Now, there are several ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's not possible, we do have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver to you your trust package. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. Now, with this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting their affairs in order and their trust in place pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be substantially less than the $100 a month you'd pay us under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in place prior to the revaluation for all of the reasons that we've stated here today. Now, we will be going to a Q&A in just a moment, but before we do, and for the benefit of our newer callers, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you may want to seriously consider contacting us for our initial no-obligation information package. Our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, inclusive of international currency arbitrages, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in these areas, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have been working together for a decade now in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning, and it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. In point of fact, under our system of civil litigation, it is when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them or lose them outright. And invariably, it's at precisely those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives, both pre- and post-RV, as we understand them. Again, thanks so much for taking the time to listen to this call. We will be going to the Q&A in just a minute. If the things we've discussed here are of interest, I strongly suggest you contact us to get our initial no-obligation informational package. And you might need to have a pen and paper handy because, again, I will be opening the Q&A in just a moment. 2 quick rules on the Q&A. We do not take service calls on the Q&A. Our existing clients can contact us by phone or email if they have service questions or issues. And second, for obvious reasons, in order to participate in the Q&A, your name and number must be on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and open the Q&A now. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD calls and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed this afternoon for this live call, with the exception of the last digit. Rather than dialing a 4, you'll dial a 3, and then use the same access code, which is 739-394#. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you can go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out periodically pre-RV, but after the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar, everything's going to change, and we'll be sending out emails and adjusting our conference calls on a weekly basis. So let's go to our Q&A. Our first question here is area code 302. That's 302. Go ahead.
Hey, Jim, Jeff Parker from Virginia. How are you doing?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What can I do for you, my friend?
Yes, sir. I bought stock. I've been purchasing stock on the ISX for the past 5 years. How would that be protected? Can we put that under the trust also?
Yes, you can assign. We don't recommend you assign other assets pre-RV, but if you have an asset like that you do anticipate a substantial increase in value, contact us and let us know. We will try to amend our assignment form to accommodate that particular asset, and then you just execute and notarize that document, and those assets, whatever they are, would then be formally assigned to your trust.
Okay, so it can be done.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and one other question. I got the package from you, right? But I haven't started filling it out. Now, if it was to revalue tomorrow night, just for the sake of argument, and we just started filling this thing out, that's not enough time. How much time would it take to get me covered?
Once we have your application, and if there's any issues on it, we would call you to resolve it. Once we have your fee and your application, you should have your trust within 5 working days. Once you have executed the documents we instruct you to execute, the trust will be legally enforced and the currencies will be assigned to that trust. All that must be accomplished prior to the revaluation. Now remember, The reinstitution of the dinar in country is not the revaluation. The revaluation would occur when the IMF will take the Iraqi dinar out of the program rate. So you do have time to get this done, but to be honest with you, I wouldn't waste time, because if the currency were to reinstitute in country in the next 30 days, it could revalue in the next 30 days. So, I wouldn't drag my feet if you've made a decision that you want to go ahead and protect the asset.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Our next caller is area code 405. That's 405.
Hello, Jim. This is Doug in Oklahoma City.
Yes, sir, Doug. How you doing?
Very well. Comments made that, I believe that Trump is trying to move us away from a fiat currency. The $3 trillion package that came out, obviously we don't have those reserves in the U.S. Treasury. Can you give us a little idea of where you think that money came from? Did it come from the Fed, or was it issued through the U.S. Treasury? And how are they able to do that?
Okay. Remember, the money issued by the Federal Reserve is not currency. It's a debt instrument. They just create $3 trillion. It's tacked onto what the federal government owes the Federal Reserve. But, there's a saying, if I lend you money, I'm in control. If I lend you too much money, you're in control. So what Trump's basically doing, in my opinion, he's going to bankrupt the Fed and then make it a subsidiary of the Treasury, then forgive the debt after we have resolved our issues. We will then move to a new currency that will be a Basel III commodity-backed. So that's what I think the long-term plan is.
Interesting. Are we at 0% at the Fed? I was looking at the Treasury notes. I think a 1 month is 0.129 as of today. So there is some interest accumulation on this $3 trillion at this time. Is that correct?
That's my understanding. Although Trump wants to push to zero. Now, once the Fed is formally subsidiary of the Treasury Department, then he can just go ahead and make that happen.
Interesting. Okay. Well,
that sounds like a simple answer, but that's what he's doing. It's sort of like long division. You can look at it and you might know the answer, but if the teacher says, I want to see all your work, then you got to explain how you got to your answer. Well, he knows what he's trying to accomplish, and there are a number of intermediary steps that are involved, but the simple answer is that he's basically ending what, in his view, is the abuse of the Fed and the creation of money out of nothing. And again, the Fed does not print currency. That money are all debt instruments. The banks pay interest, we pay interest on something they created out of nothing. It's not backed by anything. It began in 1913 with the establishment of the Fed, but at least it was gold-backed. Then in 1974, when Nixon got rid of the gold standard, it became pure fiat currency created wholly out of nothing.
Okay. I have another very relevant question. I can't bring it to mind, so if it does, I'll call again. I know.
Okay. I'll drag my feet so you can remember. Maybe it'll come up when I'm talking to these other folks.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay. Okay, our next caller is area code 312. I'm taking a guess that's left.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Jim.
Yes, sir. What's up?
I missed the very beginning. It was kind of loud, or rather loud where I was. So, did you say 30 to 60 days this time?
45.
Because everyone's in agreement? 45
I said 45 to 60 because now that they have, in other words, the newly appointed Prime Minister designate now has 30 days to assemble his cabinet, which must then subsequently be approved by the Parliament. So I'm saying 45 to 60 days because I'm trying to be a little conservative. I mean, if things move according constitutionally to how this could be done, everything could be in place within 30 days, and then the reinstitution could theoretically happen any time thereafter. But I'm sticking with 45 to 60 days just because the Iranians always find a way, the Iraqis always find a way to make things more complicated than they need to be.
So if, just for the sake of argument,
if they're all in agreement right now, why would they find something to say no to drag this out and not get the government completed and everything's finished?
Because the Iranians are threatening and bribing the pro-Iranian corrupt officials in Iraq.
But the Iranians have agreed as well as the Iraqis and the U.S.
You mean the Shia blocs have agreed? The Iranians have nothing to do with it. The only thing the Iranians can do is foment a discord, and they've lost pretty much their ability to do that. This individual also has a track record of working with everyone. He's a moderate Shia. He was anti-Saddam Hussein. He was forced to leave the country. He came back. He was involved for years in conflict resolution with the sects. He was appointed as the chief of the intelligence. He's checked all the box, and he's a go as far as I'm concerned.
All right. Okay. All right. I don't have any other questions, but thanks for taking my call. Say hi to the professor.
Yes, sir.
Talk to you soon.
Okay. Take care, my friend.
All right. You too.
Well, this was our last call. I'm dragging my feet a little bit here just in case Doug can remember his other question. In the meantime, again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to the call. I hope. Oh, here comes Doug right here. Okay, Doug, what's up?
Hey, thank you. I got back to my present day mind. Okay, I think it was more on lines of what Les was talking about. The benefit to the Iraqi people and the Iraqi government with a valuable currency seems to be undisputable. So from a perspective of why is it that they don't, the Shia, the people influenced by Iran in the government, why don't they want this to happen? I mean, basically, I think it comes down to money and power.
They're crooks. That's why, because they've been skimming the auctions. They've been pilfering money from their central bank. Some of them have been intimidated and threatened by the Iranians. Some of them are more hardline Shia. I've said to people all the time that if you really want to understand the mullahs of Iran, just Google 12th Imamer, because these are a specifically radical strain of Shia. They don't like moderate Shias. They don't like Sunnis. They don't like Kurds. They don't like Christians. They don't like anybody. In addition, the Iranians are Caucasian, and they are frankly they look down on the Arab and black Muslims as well. They're just not good folks. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. And this has been the problem since 2012. At least since 2012, the Iranian influence has been a problem. Trump is the first guy to come along and smack him in the mouth, and it seems to be working.
Okay. I guess, we've all waited so long. Sometimes you run out of logical reasons why you think, why doesn't this happen?
Well, anytime there's a major change in the status quo, someone that was taking advantage of the status quo has lost their advantage. It's happened. It's happening in our country right now. I mean, what's going on politically in this country? I mean, there's black hats and there's white hats. Now, there's different opinions about who's wearing what hat, but it can't be denied that certain people are doing certain things for their own political and financial futures. It's unfortunate, but the adage is true: power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Okay. Well. Thank you very much for another Wednesday afternoon uplift.
Yeah, let's just hope that this guy's the right guy. I can't think of anyone better suited under the circumstances, but you can't underestimate the Iraqis' ability to drop the ball. Let's just hope they finally got their act together. One other thing I'll mention is Trump has not reinstituted the sanctions against Iraq, but my understanding is he's dangling it heavy, and he's letting them know there's not only are U.S. forces not going to leave Iraq, they're going to push back hard on Iran, and if they have to, they'll bring more troops in. The UN is assisting them as well, which is a little unusual. So let's hope that enough leverage has been brought to bear so they finally get this done.
Well, on Monday, Al Jazeera ran a very extensive article on the. I guess they had a, because I think that he was brought in last Wednesday, a week ago today.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
And Monday they ran an article about his background, and he seems to have had a lot of contact when he was outside Iraq with England. I guess he was holed up in England during his exile, and so that could play very well for us, I hope.
I agree. That's why I said he seems to be the right guy. He checked all the boxes.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. Have a great day.
Yes, sir. Take care, Doug.
Bye-bye.
Well, Doug was our last caller for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to the call. I certainly hope it was informative. I also hope that for those of you that are interested in the things we've discussed, you will contact us, get our initial package. Again, you're absolutely under no obligation by doing so. It has a lot of information about us, about trust, about the evaluation. You can review the package, contact us by phone or email if you have questions. We'll be happy to assist you in every way, and there will be no consultation fee. Our next call is, of course, scheduled for next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature happens between now and then, we'll try to get an emergency email out and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks for listening, and have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.